You ever wonder what it would feel like to wake up and realize the world's currency, the thing you spent your whole life chasing, has just evaporated overnight? Not just your bank balance, but the very idea of money. The ATM is a tombstone. The supermarket is a battlefield. Your wallet is just a leather souvenir from a dead civilization. But here's a twist nobody prepares you for. Value doesn't die. It just mutates, like a virus, into something raw, primal, and sometimes downright bizarre. If you want to survive, you need to know what the new currency is before you're left trading your last pair of socks for a stale cracker. Let's start with the first, most ancient currency, food. But don't just picture a can of beans on a dusty shelf. Imagine this. It's day 5 after the blackout, and your stomach is a hollow drum. You're eyeing your last can of chili like it's the Hope Diamond. Outside, the city's gone quiet. Too quiet. You hear footsteps in the hallway. Now, ask yourself, what would you trade for a single meal if you hadn't eaten in 2 days? Would you give up your last painkiller? Your only lighter? Would you risk a secret or a favor you can't repay? Here's what nobody tells you. In every collapse, food isn't just calories. It's leverage. It's trust. It's a test of character. Picture a barter market in the ruins of Rome, where a sack of grain could buy you a night's safety or a knife in the back. Or think of Venezuela, where a bag of rice became more valuable than a month's salary. History repeats itself, and the rules are always the same. The person with food sets the terms, and the hungry pay the price. But it's not just about what you have, it's about how you use it. Let's say you're trading with a stranger. Do you show your whole stash or just a taste? Do you trust their handshake or watch their eyes for a flicker of desperation? Here's a trick from the field. Never trade in the open. Never reveal your last can, and always have an exit plan. Because in the world after money, food is both a blessing and a curse. The more you have, the more you need to hide it. The more you trade, the more you risk becoming a target. And don't forget the science. Your body needs about 2,000 calories a day just to keep the lights on. Miss a few meals and your judgment slips, your hands shake, your temper flares. That's when mistakes happen. That's when the real predators start to circle. So when you're weighing that can of beans in your hand, remember, it's not just dinner, it's a bargaining chip, a shield, a secret weapon. Now let's make it personal. What's in your pantry right now that could buy you a week of safety? How long would it last if you had to share? Pause and do a mental inventory. Would you trade your last chocolate bar for a flashlight? Would you risk a can of tuna for a promise of protection? In the end, food is never just food. It's the first test of who you'll become when the world goes dark. And here's a final twist. In every crisis, the value of food mutates. In week 1, it's about calories. By month 6, it's about seeds. Can you grow more, or are you just eating your future? In the siege of Leningrad, people traded bread for books, then books for rats, then rats for hope. The lesson? The currency of survival is always changing, and the smart survivor is always thinking one meal ahead. But let's say you've managed to keep your stomach full. The next thing you'll need is medicine. Not just the fancy stuff with names that sound like spells, but anything that can keep infection at bay, dull pain, or bring down a fever. Picture this. You're patching up a friend's arm after a fall, and the wound is starting to look angry, red, swollen, oozing. You reach for your last packet of antibiotics. Suddenly, that little blister pack is worth more than a gold bar. Would you trade it for a promise? For loyalty? For a night's watch while you sleep? In every collapse, medicine becomes magic. In World War II, cigarettes and penicillin were traded like currency in POW camps. In modern Venezuela, a bottle of ibuprofen can buy you a week's groceries. The logic is clear. In a world without doctors, medicine is the power to heal, to bargain, to save a life or end a negotiation. And it's not just about you. If you have medicine, you have leverage. You can trade it for food, tools, or loyalty. You can build alliances or buy your way out of trouble. But here's the catch. Medicine expires. Some drugs lose potency. Others become dangerous. The smart survivor knows how to read labels, recognize signs of spoilage, and improvise with herbal remedies when the pharmacy shelves are bare. In a pinch, honey can be used as an antiseptic, willow bark as a painkiller. The science is ancient. Before Big Pharma, people survived with plants, poultices, and ingenuity. But beware, improvisation is risky. The line between medicine and poison is thin, and mistakes are permanent. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than academic sources. Now, let's talk about water. It sounds simple, almost laughable, until you realize that most modern cities are just 3 days away from thirst-driven chaos. Imagine the taps running dry, the bottled water aisle stripped bare, and every puddle on the street suddenly looking like a lifeline. You can survive weeks without food, but only days without water. Dehydration kills faster than hunger, and contaminated water kills slower, but just as surely. But here's the twist. It's not just about having water. It's about having the means to make water safe. Water filters, purification tablets, even knowledge of how to boil or distill. These become the tools of the new rich. Picture yourself at a makeshift market and holding a Sawyer mini filter. Someone offers you a whole bag of rice for it. Do you trade? Or do you keep it, knowing that every drop you drank could be your last? The physics is unforgiving. Water always flows downhill, and so does desperation. In every collapse, the rivers run with more than just water. Disease, pollution, and decay turn every stream into a gamble. The person who can make dirty water safe is always in demand. In the refugee camps of Syria, a bottle of clean water can buy you a blanket, a meal, or a place in line. In the end, water is both a commodity and a tool for building trust. Control the water, and you control the people. But survival isn't just about the basics. The next thing that replaces money is something older than civilization itself: tools. Not just any tools, but the kind that let you build, fix, or defend. A good knife is worth more than a stack of $100 bills. A hatchet, a multi-tool, even a sturdy screwdriver. These are the keys to autonomy. In a world where you can't call a plumber or buy a new lock, the ability to repair, improvise, or fortify becomes priceless. Imagine you're in a barter market and someone offers you a rusty old Leatherman. You know it's seen better days, but you also know it can open cans, fix a generator, or help you improvise in a pinch. Do you trade your last can of beans for it? The person with tools isn't just surviving, they're shaping their own fate. And here's the kicker. Tools don't spoil, don't rot, and don't need refrigeration. They're the closest thing to permanent wealth you'll find after the fall. But tools are only as good as the hands that wield them. Maintenance is key. A dull blade is a liability. A rusty saw is a death sentence. The science is simple. Metal corrodes, wood rots, and plastic breaks. The survivor who can repair, sharpen, and improvise tools is always ahead of the game. And here's the irony. In a world obsessed with technology, the simplest tools become the most valuable. A hammer, a file, a length of wire. These are the building blocks of civilization and the seeds of its rebirth.
Now, let's get to the fifth item. Knowledge. Not the kind you find on Wikipedia, but the kind that lives in your hands, your head, and your habits. In a world without Google, practical skills become currency. Can you start a fire in the rain? Can you set a broken bone or identify edible plants? Can you fix a generator or purify water with nothing but sunlight and a plastic bottle? These skills are worth more than gold because they can't be stolen, only learned. Imagine you're sitting by a campfire and someone offers you a trade, a can of beans for a lesson in making a fish trap. Do you take it? In every collapse, the people who thrive aren't the strongest or the richest. They're the ones who know how to adapt. And here's the dark humor. In the old world, you paid for knowledge. In the new world, knowledge pays you. But not all knowledge is equal. The internet is gone, books are rare, and rumors are deadly. The survivor who knows how to filter truth from fiction, who can teach as well as do, becomes a node in the new network. Skills like first aid, fire making, navigation, and repair are always in demand. But so are softer skills, negotiation, leadership, even storytelling. In a world starved for hope, the person who can inspire, organize, or entertain is never hungry for long. The science of survival is social as much as physical. Humans are tribal, and tribes need leaders, teachers, and healers. And finally, the sixth item, the one that nobody wants to talk about but everyone needs: security. In a world where the rule of law is a distant memory, safety quietly becomes one of the most valuable resources you can offer or receive. Protection, whether it comes from personal vigilance, trusted alliances, a strong reputation, or simply the ability to deter trouble, turns into a form of currency all its own. But here's the twist. Security isn't about aggression or intimidation. It's about building trust, forming networks, and creating stability through presence, preparation, and cooperation. The person who can offer safety through community support, shared vigilance, or organized group defense controls peace of mind for themselves and for others. The logic is clear. In a world without reliable authorities, every interaction carries a layer of risk. Those who can provide reliable protection, not through force but through unity and organization, set the terms for cooperation and trade. History shows us that in times of crisis, groups that organize for mutual defense and support often fare better than those who try to go it alone. Security isn't about dominance, it's about stability, deterrence, and the ability to maintain order in chaotic times. It underpins every other form of value, because without some level of safety, nothing else can be reliably traded, stored, or enjoyed. But here's where it gets interesting. These 6 items, food, medicine, water, tools, knowledge, and security, don't exist in isolation. They interact, overlap, and amplify each other. A can of beans is worth more if you have alliances to help protect it. Medicine is priceless if you have the knowledge to use it safely. Water is only valuable if you have the tools and the community to purify and share it. In the chaos of collapse, value becomes a web, not a ladder. The smart survivors aren't just hoarders, they're traders, negotiators, and builders of trust. They understand that value is fluid and that today's preparation can be tomorrow's stability. But let's not pretend the story ends with a simple list, because after the first wave of chaos, when the dust settles and the adrenaline wears off, the real economy of survival begins to mutate. The 6 currencies, food, medicine, water, tools, knowledge, security, start to evolve, and so do the rules of the game. If you're still thinking in terms of what's in my stash, you're already a step behind. The survivors who last are the ones who see the next mutation coming, who adapt before the rest even realize the rules have changed. Picture this. It's month 2. The initial panic has faded, and the city's population has thinned out, some from escape, some from desperation, some from the simple math of hunger and thirst. The barter markets are no longer just desperate huddles and alleyways. They're organized, almost ritualistic. There's a rhythm to the trades, a hierarchy of value that shifts with every rumor, every new threat, every change in the weather. You walk through the market and you can feel the tension in the air. Every glance is a calculation, every handshake a test of trust. Now, food is still king, but the crown is slipping. The easy calories are gone, the shelves are empty, the rats are getting thin, and suddenly seeds are worth more than steak. You overhear a trade. A handful of heirloom tomato seeds for a working flashlight. The logic is agricultural now. Whoever can grow can rule. You see people trading not just for today's meal, but for the hope of a harvest months down the line. It's a gamble, but in a world where every day is a risk, it's the only bet worth making. Medicine too has changed. The stockpiles are running low, and the black market is thriving. But now, the real value is in the hands of the healers, the ones who know how to make a poultice from weeds, who can set a bone with nothing but sticks and rags, who can keep a fever from turning fatal with a handful of wild herbs. You see a crowd gathered around an old woman, trading jars of honey and strips of cloth for her knowledge. She's not just a healer, she's a power broker, a gatekeeper to life itself. The science is evolutionary. The tribe that can heal survives. Water, meanwhile, has become a daily obsession. The rivers are polluted, the wells are running dry, and every drop is a negotiation. You see people trading for filters, for buckets, for the secret location of a clean spring. There's a rumor that someone has rigged a rainwater catchment on the roof of an abandoned school, and suddenly that knowledge is worth more than gold. You watch as a group trades a week's worth of food for a map, and you wonder if it's real or just another desperate gamble. Tools have become heirlooms. The good ones are passed from hand to hand, repaired and repurposed until they're more patched than original. You see a man with a homemade forge, trading knives for batteries and soap. He's not just a craftsman, he's a kingmaker. The person who can make, fix, and improvise is always in demand. You watch as someone trade a working radio for a set of wrenches, and you realize, in this world, the ability to create is the ultimate insurance policy. Knowledge has now become a communal resource. The survivors who can teach, who can organize, who can pass on skills to the next generation, these are the new elders, the new leaders. You see a group of children gathered around the fire, learning how to set snares, how to read the weather, how to tell friend from foe. The science is anthropological. Cultures survive not just through strength, but through memory, through the stories and skills they pass on. Security has become more than just a word. It's about organization, about alliances, about the ability to project stability and deter risks. The lone wolf is a myth. The real power lies in groups, in networks, in the ability to build trust and maintain order. You see a group patrolling the market, not just with vigilance, but with reputation. They're the peacekeepers, the ones who make sure trades are honored and disputes are settled fairly. Their currency is loyalty, and their wealth is measured in the number of people willing to stand with them when the night grows dangerous. But here's the real twist. As the months drag on, new forms of value start to emerge. The basics, food, water, medicine, are still essential. But now, comfort becomes a luxury. Cigarettes, chocolate, soap, even a working deck of cards, these are traded like treasures. You see a man trade a bar of soap for a night's shelter, a woman trade a bottle of homemade wine for a story, a child trade a handful of wildflowers for a smile.
The logic is psychological. In a world stripped of pleasure, small comforts become priceless. And then there's information. In every collapse, secrets become currency. The location of a hidden cache, the schedule of a rival group, the recipe for homemade antibiotics. These are traded in whispers, bought with favors, and sometimes come at a high personal cost. You see a man slip a note to a trader, and suddenly the price of water spikes. The science is simple. Information is power, and power is always for sale. But let's not forget the dark side. In every market, there are those who prey on the desperate. The black market thrives, trading in things nobody wants to admit they need. Contraband medicine, stolen food, even information. You see a deal go bad, a fight break out, a life changed over a handful of pills. The logic is ruthless. In a world without laws, every transaction is a risk, every alliance a gamble. Now let's make it personal again. Imagine you're at the market, holding your last can of beans, a bottle of antibiotics, a water filter, a multi-tool, a head full of skills, and a reputation for reliability. You're rich by post-collapse standards, but you're also a target. Every item you own is a magnet for envy, desperation, and uncertainty. The real art of survival isn't just collecting these items, it's knowing how to use them, hide them, and trade them without losing your peace of mind. So how do you play the game? Here's a scenario. You need medicine, but all you have is food. You find a trader, but he's surrounded by his group and his eyes are cautious. Do you trust him? Do you show your full hand or bluff with a decoy stash? Do you trade in public or try to lure him to a safer spot? Every choice is a risk, every trade a test. The smart survivor reads the room, watches for tells, and always has a backup plan. And here's another twist. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can offer isn't an item at all, it's a service. Maybe you know how to fix a broken water pump, or how to treat a wound, or how to negotiate with a tense group. Maybe you're just a good listener, a calming presence in a world gone mad. In the end, the real currency is always human. What you can do, who you can help, who you can trust. But let's not get too sentimental. The world after collapse is brutal, and sentimentality is a luxury. The smart survivor knows when to be generous and when to be cautious. They know that every act of kindness is an investment, and every act of betrayal is a debt that must be paid. The science is psychological. Reciprocity is the glue that holds groups together, but betrayal is always lurking in the shadows. Let's talk about the long game. In the first months, it's all about survival. Food, water, medicine, security. But as time goes on, new forms of value emerge. Maybe someone figures out how to make soap, or brew alcohol, or repair solar panels. Maybe a new leader rises, promising order and protection in exchange for loyalty and tribute. Maybe a new belief system takes hold, offering hope and meaning in a world stripped of both. The logic is sociological.
Humans crave structure, ritual, and belonging. The person who can provide these, who can create a sense of community, becomes the new banker, the new guide, the new builder. But let's not forget the wild cards. In every collapse, there are always surprises, items or skills that suddenly become priceless. Maybe it's a stash of antibiotics when a plague hits. Maybe it's a working radio when news is scarce. Maybe it's a musical instrument, a deck of cards, a book of poetry, something that reminds people they're still human, still capable of joy, even in the darkest times. The science is neurological. The brain craves novelty, pleasure, and connection. The person who can provide these, even for a moment, is always in demand. And then there's the question of rebuilding. Every collapse is also a beginning. The survivors who can organize, who can plan, who can look beyond the next meal, these are the architects of the new world. Their currency is vision, and their wealth is measured in the futures they can imagine and inspire others to build. But let's not sugarcoat it. The road from collapse to recovery is long, hard, and littered with the bones of the unprepared. The 6 items that replace money, food, medicine, water, tools, knowledge, security are just a starting point. The real challenge is learning to see value where others see only ruin, to adapt, to improvise, to survive. So what's the takeaway? If you want to survive the end of the world, not just scrape by, but thrive, you need more than a stash of beans and batteries. You need to understand the logic of value, the science of scarcity, the art of negotiation. You need to be adaptable, resourceful, and just a little bit relentless. You need to see the world not as it was, but as it is, and as it could be. Because in the end, the real currency isn't food or medicine or water. It's the ability to create value, to build trust, to inspire hope. The world may collapse, but humanity endures. And as long as there are people willing to trade, to help, to dream, there will always be a future worth fighting for. But let's not close the book just yet, because there's always a 7th item, a wild card that nobody sees coming. Maybe it's community, the ability to build alliances, to create something bigger than yourself. Maybe it's faith, the stubborn belief that tomorrow can be better than today. Or maybe it's something else entirely, something waiting to be discovered in the ashes of the old world. So here's your challenge. Do a 7-day value audit. Look at your life, your skills, your relationships. What could you trade if the world went dark tomorrow? What would you protect? What would you risk? The answers might surprise you, and they might just save your life. Because in the end, value never dies. It just waits for someone smart enough, tough enough, and adaptable enough to claim it. And now, you know the secret. This is a hypothetical, educational exploration of survival concepts and historical patterns. Nothing in this video is intended as real-world advice or encouragement of any illegal or dangerous actions. In every era, it's been the communities that come together, organize, and look out for one another that have the best chance of not just surviving, but rebuilding something worth living for.